two powerful women partners in podcasting that's come on. Miss J. Chivon, say hello.
Hello, good morning.
And Miss Awesome, all around the world, known, famous, RednSable. Hey, RednSable, how you doing?
Good morning, Pastor Jay. How are you? How
I
are you,
am good. I'm
Jay?
good. Uh, these two women, we had a great discussion on basically women in power because this is RednSable. Is this National Women's Month or is this International Women's Month or
It's international.
International
International.
Women's Month? Okay, that's what I thought. And we were just talking about women of power, and it's kind of interesting as we talked about this subject. I love talking about women in power and women of color in power in particular. Okay, so we were talking about different women. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just start with RednSable. She may have some quotes, she may have some information for us, but we're going to celebrate for this hour women of power, in quotes, women of color in power, because you are the queens of the earth. So RednSable, what do you have for us today?
Okay, so we are going to begin with a quote that I found by Harriet Tubman. She is a legendary trailblazer. She changed many lives. So her quote is, "Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars, to change the world."
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
I love
Say that
that.
again. You have the strength. Say that again. That was awesome.
You have, where am I? Okay. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars, to change the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
To reach for the stars to change the world. And we know that Harriet Tubman, she did it. I mean, the Underground Railroad, and as many African Americans as she had set free. And she really pushed even the men. I remember there was a story saying that she even pulled a gun on someone and said, either you coming or you dying here, but I'm not going to let you live to go back and tell them what we do and the way we do it because they're going to torture you. So she was that bold kind of woman because she wanted freedom. You know, it drove her to set people free. And that's a beautiful thing when you see women throughout history who have stepped up in the gap and decided to take the lead role. And every time a woman takes the lead role I see in history, now this is just what I observed, when they decide to step into their lead role, they get things done. Because it's almost like do or die for them. It's almost like do or die for them. So what do you think, RednSable?
I agree. I believe that she definitely stepped out of her comfort zone and she decided that she was going to make a change and nobody else was going to do that. So she stepped up and she put her life in danger in order for her to free everyone else. She wasn't going to just go for self. She decided that she was going to take an entire community of her people with her. And it definitely takes strength and courage and patience to do that because some people didn't want to go out of fear. And then some people were just comfortable at being uncomfortable. Sometimes you are so stuck in the mud that it becomes a way of life and you're afraid of anything new. So you stay there and you complain, but you don't do anything to get out of the mud. So she decided, I'm going to get out and I'm going to drag you all with me, whether you want to go or not, because this is not how we're supposed to live. And so I admire her for that. I applaud her strength, her vigor, her resilience, because she just every day she endangered her life to save others, and that's just an amazing story. It's an amazing journey. A lot of people will never do that. They'll just look out for self.
Yeah, and think about it. She really sacrificed relationships and everything to do this for her people. It's like her mission was big, like you said, her mission was bigger than herself, and her sacrifice has ripple effects throughout history for every African American that lives. You know, some of us would not be here today if it wasn't for people like her, and her in particular. Think how many families and generations she has impacted because she got hundreds of people out of slavery into the free land that went on to live up in the north and in Canada and different places uh, where they have flourished now. You know, it's just a wonderful thing. Jay Chivon, what do you think about that, and who are you going to talk about, or what do you have for us today?
Oh, well, I have, well, what I think about that, I do think that she definitely was selfless in that. I mean, she knew there was a bigger picture than what was going on in her circumstances. Like, she really did make sure that she got every last one of them. You know, she said that she saved 1,000 slaves, and if she, you know, if anyone knew they were slaves, she would have sold, you know, set free 1,000 more. I mean, I just think that with that alone, just thinking that someone really wanted to stay in that slave mindset, that they didn't want to be set free, you know, to even try to get them out of that mindset, to try to get them out of that circumstance, and if people just didn't want to go, I think that just takes some bravery. And I think that I'm still waiting on them to turn that $20 bill into her face. I don't know what happened with that. Are they still trying to do that?
I think they are, but I think with COVID and the war going on, that kind of took a back seat. You know what I'm saying? As far as politics is, you know, because it's all politics. It has to be the right time. Everything happens in the right time. Even like Martin Luther King's holiday. I mean, it happens in the time when everything lines up and it happens. But I don't know. I mean, they're not really pushing it right now. I haven't heard about it, but I'm willing to bet that you start hearing about it during election season. You know what I'm saying? To
Okay.
motivate us to pay attention to who's on our side, that kind of thing. But who else did you want to talk about?
I had a quote from Audre Lorde.
Okay.
So I'm going to read her quote. It says, I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. And that resonated with me because I felt as a woman that we never really had much of a voice, or, I mean, well, we speaking more out now, but back then, you know, what women had to go through where they didn't have much of a voice, or, you know, were afraid to stand up or be protected. And that quote always resonated with me because I felt like who was out there, the first woman to really become a warrior for other women. You know, there's the way that they speak about women bashing and the cattiness and things like that. To know that there is women out there, there are true supporters of one another. So even for myself, if I felt like a woman's not protected, I'm going to want to make sure that I give her that support and uplift her with, you know, encouragement to stand strong for all the women out there. Because there's still women out there that may feel like they're unprotected and not seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always was engaged with that quote. That
Okay.
was the quote that I had came up from Audre Lorde.
Okay. And could you tell us who she is actually? You know, even do you have any more information on her besides the quote? Who is she? Because I've never heard of her.
She is an author.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She's an author. She's always written into literature for many, many, many years. But that was all that I had was that quote.
Okay.
That's all how I knew her from.
Okay. 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 Well, that's definitely a woman of empowerment. Also on the show, we talked about our favorite women. I'm coming back to you, RednSable. We were talking about our favorite women who you've already started with Harriet Tubman. Do you have a quote and another favorite woman that you want to give us that we need to know about and appreciate and honor today?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Okay.
can. Go ahead.
So, okay, good. I don't know if people will agree that she is on the famous side or the side of popularity, because she had to do a bold thing to do the right thing, but it caused a lot of strife in her own life. So I'm going to read a quote by Anita Hill, and
Okay.
then I'm going to tell you why. Okay. I did what my conscience told me to do, and you can't fail if you do that. So we
Wow.
all remember that story. We
Yeah.
all remember what it took for her to get up and tell her truth. And we also know the backlash. We watched as she was ridiculed and fingers was pointed at her. We also watched as they tried to cover the wrongdoings and tried to expose her as the person who initiated this type of behavior. And it resonated with me because there isn't a woman alive who has not had to face some type of opposition in a workplace where they were being disrespected and didn't stand up for themselves because they were afraid of the backlash that they would receive, whether they would get fired or they would be accosted or whatever the situation may be. But she wasn't going to sit and let that happen. So she helped open the doors to a lot of women who were afraid to speak, who were afraid to say, look, this thing happened. He did this thing. And that's my truth. Whether people believe it or accept it or not, that's what I'm going to stick with. So I'm not saying whether what's true or not. I'm not here to debate any of that. What I'm here to say is that I think every woman has a voice, and if something happens and you are busy trying to hide it and sweep it under the rug and pretend that this powerful person is going to overtake you and you should shut up because of that, that's wrong. You should always speak your truth, even if it's going to cost you some strife, even if it's going to cost you some friends and some family and your position in your job. It doesn't matter. If you continue to allow this type of behavior, then the person who's doing this will continue to do it. And it opens the door for other people who will come and try to do the same thing to you as well. So you run in the circles of people who have power, but you have none. And you run in the circles of people who are victors, but you are a victim. And I just feel like that's definitely not the precedence that we want to set as women in the workplace, in politics, in any type of genre of industry. You stand up and you speak up and you speak out. Even if it's going to cost you some pain in the end, you will regain that with your power and your resilience later on. So
Yeah. You know.
that is Anita Hill.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, the Bible teaches us that we should never go against our conscience, and she went with her conscience, her pain. She knew that when she did this, that she would be thrown under the bus, but it was more important to get it out, to get the ball rolling. And if I would have to label it, and I could be wrong, like I say, we could disagree on this, and I agree she is a great woman. I would never take that
Mm-hmm.
away from her. She's a great woman. She's really the one to me who started the Me Too movement. If you think about it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She is, I agree.
she started the Me Too movement before it became a movement. Think about how many
Mm-hmm.
years ago that was, and then in the last 5 years, it's become a movement. But wasn't no momentum behind her.
Mm-mm.
It was her against all of these men and
Mm-hmm.
and society, the patriarchal society, and it was how dare you challenge the one we picked. That's one of you. That's one of you. That's African American.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you challenge him when we have handpicked him? But he had a
Mm-hmm.
flaw. He had a flaw that should be looked at, whether they paid attention to it or not. And obviously, we know that they didn't pay attention to it because they basically demonized her. But she brought it to the forefront. And I think that's made a difference down the line, even to the Kavanaugh hearings when he got put in the Supreme Court. Like That violation was never talked about until then. But the response may be the same at the higher levels of government. But that violation was never talked about until Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill. Never. And you can't tell me history hasn't showed us that there's been that kind of violation throughout America at the highest levels of office everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So, but she brought it to the forefront and she took a chance and she suffered financially and her career from it. I know she's teaching now somewhere, but I know in that, you know, that first part of it, as time go on, people forget about it, you know. But, you know, she suffered. You know, she was a pariah. You know, no college would take her for a while because of the controversy. You know, didn't nobody want her. You know, so I appreciate the fact of what she's done. Jay Chivon, you do you know about Anita Hill?
When I was little, I didn't really know much about what was going on. I just remember that was the first time I even ever heard the word sexual harassment.
Wow. Okay.
As a little kid, because it was all over, you know, television. Not even just the news, but even in primetime TV, they had the subject of sexual harassment, and that was the first time I heard her name. And they even showed scenes from that court hearing, and you could just see the stress all over her face of what she was going through. And that's what that's really what I remember from seeing her, is that image of her being in, when she's being questioned, and she was like holding her head, and it just had to be just a headache to even just go through that, because people were questioning her and challenging her and making it seem like she wasn't even. It was like people, they had like Team Anita Hill and they had Team Clarence Thomas, and it's like it was some people that were really going against her as if she was lying.
Right.
And I'm like, why do they not believe this woman? Like, why? What does she have to lie about or lie for against this man? Like, I didn't understand that even as a kid. I didn't understand why they just didn't seem to believe her, or that it even had to be a trial. Like, I didn't know what was going on. That's about as much as I know about the situation. I know, like, I guess like a while back they had Kerry Washington play her in a movie, but I didn't even watch it. But I remember that brought her name back out there. It's probably around the time. No, I wouldn't say it's around the time of the Me Too movement, but I would say like 5 or 6 years ago, they did come back with a movie about her, and I was just like, I was glad that her story was told, but I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I didn't know much about it, but that's about as much I can remember as a kid of seeing that on TV. How much it just impacted the whole American culture with that situation that happened with her and Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, and again, it's amazing because I'm thinking just if you live life long enough, sometimes your conscience and your character puts you in situations that you think you can measure out the response because it's supposed to be good for you. You know it's going to be tough, but there's no way that she could have prepared herself. And RednSable, you can chime in, any one of you. There's no way I believe that she could have prepared herself for the onslaught that came against her. There's, you know, in her wildest imagination, you know what I'm saying? She just had to go through it. You know what I'm saying? She couldn't just, there was no documents, there's no coaching that would have prepared her for what she was about to go through.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There was no support either. Even if her female colleagues supported her, they did it behind the scenes. Nobody wanted to be in that type of a limelight, let's say. And it took a lot of courage for her to do that, like I was saying earlier. I believe the way I would see her was that it must have been a very painful and lonely journey, because who was standing by her?
Yeah.
When I watched it on television, I didn't see anybody that was supporting her. I would see the lawyers shifting in their seat that was supposed to be representing her. And it made me feel like, are they really for her? Are they really fighting for her? Or are they just there because this suddenly became a media sensation and now it's going to bring them more clients? Like, it made me feel for her, because she was definitely sought out to be the pariah. She was pointed at and ridiculed. They dragged her.
Yeah.
And
And,
all she was doing was telling her truth, and they dragged her like she was some kind of like she initiated it. Like she was just a harlot, just coming in and trying to woo these men with whatever she was doing, and that was not the case. So I definitely feel that she she was on a far side of falling, and no one wanted to catch her.
yeah, and you know what? From
That's
my
how I feel.
remembrance now, I don't remember many black celebrities coming out and supporting her. Do you remember anything like that?
No, I don't remember that.
Athletes, all these outspoken athletes and these celebrities that got all these political opinions now. When she was on the hot seat, I don't remember people coming to her and, you know, I don't even remember I just don't remember it. Now, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I don't remember even the social activist stars of that day coming out and vehemently supporting her.
Yeah, like Jesse Jackson.
Yeah, I don't remember them marching for her. I don't remember them boycotting for her. I don't remember them swinging for her. It was almost like, let's just see which way the wind blow, and if she happens to come out on top and it makes us look good, we'll jump on her bandwagon.
Oh wow.
You know, I mean, that's how I look at a lot of these social activists. It's like, um, just watch, as they say, follow the money, and you'll find out a lot that some of these people that they have handpicked as our leaders aren't really leading us anywhere. They're not Harriet Tubmans. Amen. They're not Harriet Tubmans. They're compromised, handpicked, and their goal is to. They've been told, we'll give you money, just keep them in control, keep them down. We'll raise up a couple of you people, and you'll be satisfied. Your family will be taken care of for the rest of their life. But for the masses of people, all I know is in St. Louis. That's why I wish a Harriet Tubman would come. And then again, a lot of like we have a African American female mayor now, and she's doing a great job. She's handling it. She's doing it. She's facing the problems of St. Louis, and we finally have a first district female Black African American female congressman that took over a dynasty where Congressman Clay and his son behind him. I mean, it's like 50, 60 years of one family being the representative in Congress for the first congressional district, and this young lady won. African American young lady won, and they were African American, but she won. But the one thing I noticed is I see movement of things when the women get involved. I do see that. I see things changing because it's something that God has given women, and especially to me, African American women. You guys have a tenacity that, like, once you get on the hunt and want to do something, like a Harriet Tubman, there's nothing that can stop you. You're gonna, that ride or die in a good way. That's who you are. In a good way. I'm using it in a positive way. Now, that ride or die woman, African American woman, once she gets when she gets rolling, it doesn't make no difference she has support or not. Like we just talked about Anita Hill. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. And what I love about what I see in the strength of African American women and women of color is they are not monolithic, meaning that they come from all different parts of society. They're not just Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
They're not just Republicans. I mean, it's kind of funny to me. Just check out Condoleezza Rice. She ain't no joke. You know what I'm saying? She ain't no joke. And she was the first African American female Secretary of State. I mean, people don't understand how big that was. And she was a fashionista. She was clean. She was clean. She wasn't drab. She was clean. Before there was Michelle, just look at the type of woman she was. Condoleezza Rice, well spoken. Just wow. I mean, I just have high respect for her. But and go on, even her sister too. African American women throughout time have shown that they are more than capable of stepping into the forefront and getting things done. And I think that this war that is artificially created for a lot of reasons between the African American male and the African American female, we need to see past that and see how detrimental that is. Because in our situation, as descendants from slaves, the one thing we are both, we're descendants from slaves. Okay. So what we have to understand is that if they can get the slaves fight amongst the slaves, we'll never pay attention to what the master's doing. Never. So it should be a thing where we are complementary to each other. If you're better at something, then let go, run with it. You know, I believe in women of African American descent and women in general can be anything they want to be, and they can do it just as good, if not better. I mean, that movie Hidden Figures. I mean, I didn't know nothing about that. I mean, I loosely knew something about that, but I didn't know that these women were mathematicians and that kind of. I mean, these African American women are not put forward. Then when we see them forward, we're like, oh my God, we didn't know. Why don't we know? RednSable, why don't we know, Jay Chivon? Why don't we know about these women who have helped history? You talking about NASA? Think about it. You talk about NASA. You talk about space shuttle and that kind of stuff. You talk about NASA, the probe, all that. You never hear about them until, like I say, they can't profit. If put this way, if we would have heard about them back then, they would have been more famous, right? And they probably would have financially profited from that. But what they do, what I see is something. It's my opinion alone. What I see is our greats don't get their roses while they're younger. And what we do is wait till they in their 80s and then come back and say, oh, this is what they did. Well, they're not going to profit on it now. You know?
Yeah, that's sad.
And that's sad. Where if there was a young Caucasian person, that person would have been paraded all over the United States. Or she was a Caucasian woman. Look what they did, and look what she was in NASA. Okay. But I'm telling you, I just understand that there's power in African American women, and throughout, I'm gonna go with a group of women. In the documentary, the civil rights documentary just came out about a year ago. They were talking about Martin Luther King, and what they showed was it was the women in the church that raised the money for Martin Luther King. It was Mahalia Jackson that would come sing and raise the money. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't necessarily the men. See, and a lot of people don't understand. Martin Luther King was not readily accepted in certain parts of the United States by African Americans because they were scared that he was shaking the boat. You know what I'm saying? The ones who had made it northward were like, we're working in the factories and we're good. Why are you shaking the boat? But it was the women in the church that insisted and raised money for him to go around and do what he did. And you never hear about them until then. And I said, you know what? And when I heard that, I was like, that's how it is today in church. For the most part, it really hasn't changed.
Wow.
The African American woman has been the largest supporter of African American churches. But now we pretend like it's something that's new. You know, oh, there's more women in church than men. There's always been that. There's always been that. And instead of it being something negative, let's celebrate that because of their legacy, because they're willing to hold on and move the church forward. No matter what your denomination is, how you feel, I'm not talking about that part. But I'm talking about the sheer fact that it was them who would get up and cook the food and bring it. Think about it. They couldn't go into the restaurants. So it was them that cooked the food that bring it to the church so they could eat. It was them that sometimes put them up in homes. It was them who picked them up from airports a lot.
What?
It was them. And like I say, Mahalia Jackson would come in and sing, Aretha Franklin, all of them would come in and sing to raise money for them. And I'm not taking away from the brothers, but we never hear about that part of it. And when I heard about that, it just made me say, hey, that's the way it is today. There's no pastor's worth his weight when I tell you that in the African American church, the women play an important, significant, financial, spiritual, and emotional tone to the church. Now, if you have somebody who tell you that story and that is not including women, that's toxic masculinity. Because the African American women are very important. So, RednSable, do you have anybody else you want to talk about?
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
Okay.
I'm trying to load the page.
So, Chivon, um, did you know that it was the women that supported Martin Luther King at that level?
This is my first time even hearing that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And when you look back on it, you do see that. You do see that Mahalia Jackson was the one that was singing and Aretha Franklin, and even inside of the church, it's just I saw that, but I didn't really take that what you just said. Like I didn't even think of that till now. Like what they really did, were the ones that stepped up and the one that was taking care of everyone and the one that was still, standing in the gap. Like I didn't think about that till just now.
Yeah. Beautiful scenery. Like you say, the pictures are there. It's just that we've been trained not to look.
Mm-hmm.
We have to retrain our eyes and slow down and look at what we're really looking at. The classiness of the African American woman who rolls up her sleeves, and decides to cook, think about this, 200, 300 pieces of fried chicken. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
They had to really start you know what I'm saying? It's like what they had to do was, and they did it and didn't complain and they just did it because they saw the benefit of doing it. And it went beyond, and like, again, we go back to the suffering and the sacrifice. They were willing to sacrifice their creature comfort to go ahead and do this for a cause that was much bigger than them, that has sustained us through these years as a people. You can't defeat us because you can't defeat our women and our men, but you can't defeat what you guys bring to the table because you're the most sought after woman on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You are.
Very true.
You are the most sought after women on the planet. Every fashion thing that comes down the line, it comes out of us. Somebody takes it and turns it in. Like I say, we had holes in our jeans because we couldn't buy any jeans. Now holes in the jeans are fashionable.
Mm.
Kinky hair is fashionable.
Oh yeah.
Afro puffs, braids, fashionable.
Everywhere. Mm-hmm.
And think about when my mom says she used to have to get her hair braided, it wasn't because it was fashionable. It was for purpose because they didn't want their hair in their face while they were picking cotton and beans. Okay? So it wasn't by fashion. It was function. And everything that we went through that was function is turned into some kind of fashion. But do we get to capitalize on it? No. But people exploit us, in that. And I ain't gonna go down that road. But okay, RednSable, what you got? I'll go down that road. Go ahead.
Okay, now this is by someone whose name I don't particularly recognize. However, I love the quote. It's not about supplication. It's about power. It's not about asking. It's about demanding. It's not about convincing those who are currently in power. It's about changing the very face of power itself. And that is by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw. What do you think about that? I think it's amazing.
Yeah, that is an amazing quote. And it is about power. And see, that's the thing. It's about power and economics and education and those type of things that we have to get refocused on and not get distracted by this other stuff.
Yeah.
And other stuff could be anything that doesn't move us forward as a people and as a nation and as individuals. I told a story about my mother, and I'm not gonna go into a long story, but I remember the motivating factor from my mom, because her mom was a domestic. It's like before the movie came out and it was popular, there were real women, African American women, being domestics, basically low paid slaves for Caucasian people who had money. Okay. And my grandmother was the domestic for two families. And my mother used to tell me how when school was out, she would have to go with her mom to go, and I'm going to say this, wash white folks' drawers. And her mother, now think about this. We're not talking about a washing machine, Jay Chivon. Well, no washing machine back then.
No,
You had to wash it on a board outside where it's dusty and dirty anyway. And you had to scrub on these, no matter how they look, no matter what they smell like, you had to wash them because that was your job. And you didn't get paid by the hour. You got paid by the load or paid by the so many parcels of clothing. You didn't get paid by the hour, and it was pennies, but it was enough for your family to survive. And now my grandmother had to have two families. And my mother, as a child, going along, and she said her mother used to look at her and say, "Baby, get your education. I'm doing this so you won't have to." You see, I'm doing this for the betterment of my family, but in this, respect what I'm doing and get your education, because there's a quote that I always say: education is the only way out. That's the only way out. You have to have, and I mean, not necessarily any kind of education. Get your education, because once you get an education, my mom used to say it to me, and if you get something in your mind, they can never take it away from you. But they can always take away from you if you do, if your income is based upon your physicality. Because I was an athlete, and my mom told me, what if you blow out your knee? What if you hurt yourself? You know, everybody think they're going pro, but everybody's not going pro. But get your education. So education is important. And my grandmother washed underwear so her next generation could get education, and the next generation get education. And now my children got their education. And every generation should be striving to go further in education, not necessarily, and again, I'm not talking about necessary degrees. I'm talking whatever field you want to be in, whether it's a trade, whatever, get your education. Because there's somebody back in your history that was washing drawers and couldn't get it and wanted it. My grandmother didn't get to graduate from high school. She didn't get to go to prom. Wasn't none of that. It was working in the field and taking care of the family. Then you pile on, let's pile on abuse. Let's pile on the stress. Let's pile on, a marriage that didn't work, but the goal was she hung in there. My grandmother hung in there to raise her children. And it was a village, because my mother's aunts really raised her, because my grandmother went and married another man and had three other children by my step grandfather, he was a good man. He was an okay man. He wasn't a bad man, but my aunts removed her out the situation so she can go on with her life. But it still was a family thing. And guess what I said? It was the aunts, the sisters, that raised my mom for real, and raised their children for real. And my mom's first cousin is like a brother to her, because they was raised in the same household. BB, CC, they were my great aunts. And they all were raised in the same household. And with that, every generation should realize that this is real. The struggle for African American women has been real. And they have to endure a whole bunch of things. And again, we're not taking away from what happened to African American men, but this is the International Women's Month, and we're focusing on women in particular of color right now. So before somebody send me a comment about that, I don't want to hear it, okay? You can save that one for another day. But Jay Chivon, what do you have? Do you have anybody else?
I had Brandy Norwood.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us about her.
Well, Brandy Norwood is a singer, but way back then, like, she was this teen, like, for me, like the first, in my mind, a black teen superstar. When I was a little kid, just seeing her, that was the first time I ever seen a young brown girl be as big as she was. I mean, even down with her braids and her smile, and just, you know, just wholesome. She had her own TV show. She had her Barbie doll. I had a Barbie doll. I had a Brandy Barbie doll. That was the first time I even owned like a celebrity, a black celebrity Barbie doll, and it was Brandy. And watching Cinderella, her being the first black Cinderella, that was big to me because I've never seen anyone as big as she was on television at the time, just taking over. She was everywhere on all the magazines, commercials, cover girl. She was everywhere. And I just wanted to speak about her because she definitely impacted me as a young girl to be like, okay, I can get that. I can get that type of success. I can get not just in like music and, you know, celebrity stardom. It's just she just put a lot of hope in me as a child that all those things of being like the black Cinderella, like those type of dreams that little girls had of being the fairy tale princess and doing all these big old things that a lot of black girls at the time I really just did not see. Like even to now, I have not seen as big as she was with her own Barbie doll. I mean, they're doing it now with the Zendayas and you know, Kiki Palmers and stuff like that. Like she opened the door for them, but I still to this day have not seen it as big as she was back then. I mean, working with Whitney Houston, I mean, she was living every young black girl's dream, and it's just crazy how even though she's still a well-known celebrity, people never really kind of like they still don't really talk about that. Like they is you know, unfortunately when she got in trouble with accidentally, you know, killing someone, it kind of damaged her image and things like that. And I hate that happened for her. And I'm still, you know, glad that she's able to still work now, but it just seemed like it kind of tarnished her image in a way. But that can never leave me with how big she was back in the 90s as a teenage sensation. Okay. So that's who my lady was, Brandy.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good. You know, the one thing I want to ask the both of you, and Chivon, I'm gonna throw it back at you first. We've named some women throughout different time frames to different parts of the history of America, African American women. And my question is, have we lowered the bar to what we consider to be excellence for the African American woman now? Because of the ones that people are saying now that they look up to, I really don't see them in the same class as some of these women that we just named. Have we made a mistake by chasing the money, what we believe is money and power versus the integrity and the classiness of African American women today? So Jason, I'm gonna start with you because you're the youngest of us. So I mean, Brandy, you gave Brandy. You gave these authors. We gave Harriet Tubman, Condoleezza Rice, Anita Hill. These type of women, you know. Where is that today? Who is that today? If I'm missing her, again, I might be missing her. So tell me who exhibits those qualities today that you see? Because what I see is something else.
I mean, what do you mean, like lower the bar? Like we allowed it to be low? Like,
well, okay, I just gave this Harriet Tubman, Condoleezza Rice, whoever you want to pick through history, the women who did the NASA women, Hidden Figures, yeah, those women who exhibited such bravery that again they'll be talked about another 100 years from now. If you had to pick a, well, let me do it like this: if you had to pick a woman, and we're gonna say we're gonna use Harriet Tubman, and as the quality that you see in Harriet Tubman that we talked about, who would you see that's on the scene today? You don't know because you probably won't be living by the end. Who do you see today that will be talked about in, I mean, 200 years from now? I don't plan on being here, but you know, who do you see today that you could say we need to pay attention to because that you believe they might be a trailblazer, and people be talking about them in this light. If there's anybody out there, because you're younger, so you know I don't know of anybody, and I'm not saying that out there. I just don't know anybody. Who would you pick? I need to keep my eyes on. And if you don't know, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think I can think of it quick enough at the top of my head right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. RednSable, same question thrown back at you. Who do you think that we may need to keep our eyes on? Or is there somebody, maybe that came up in our era that hasn't reached that status yet, but maybe we need to pay attention to?
There is let me think.
What is that young lady?
Let me think.
What is that young lady that young lady that's a poet? And she's been really popular. Young lady. She spoke at a couple of different, I can't think of her name. She's like considered like the Maya Angelou of today.
Oh, you talking about who spoke at the inauguration?
Yes.
Yes, she's very, very good. But she's also very new. I don't know anything else of her except for her poetry. And I think she's amazing. But I don't know much else about her. I know that there are a lot of activists that are in the millennial age bracket. However, they don't talk about them.
Right.
They don't give them a lot of light at all. They get pushed behind those who have bigger names. Right. So that's why I'm drawing a blank right now. I can say that there are some that have a moment where they spoke out and they are fighting for different causes, but just as that moment has quickly come, it quickly goes, and then that person disappears because they're no longer in the limelight. It's like we always, and I mean we, like all of us,
right.
I mean we as a culture, as a generation of people in this society, we go after the ones with the bigger names. And the ones who are really behind the scenes doing the work, those don't get talked about a lot. You don't hear anything about them. And so that's why it's painful for me to say that, because I should know. I should have at least 5 or 6 of them in my top 5 list that I can just shoot off right now, but I can't, because they come, they get their shine, and then they disappear.
Right.
Because someone who has a name takes that spot, and those young women become writers for them. They become supporters of them in the hopes that they would be able to sit in their seat one day. So I think that we live in a world where we're busy chasing the most popular, the most influential person, as opposed to the one who's really putting in the work.
Right. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I should be able to name 3 or 4 or 5. And I don't, and I think it's by design. I mean, now I'm purposely going to go out and research some people, because it's by design that the system is set up for us to chase the shimmy, shiny, and shaking things. The system is set up for us to chase the affluential, versus the ones who are really influential. Because, like you said, the influencers, because they don't have any affluence, the money, they'll sit behind the one who still is in affluence while they put all their talent into them, hoping to get a rung up. And a lot of times those of affluence want to hang on so bad, they'll never let nobody up. The crab in the barrel type of thing. They'll never bring up the one to take their place. They'll bring up another one that'll be somewhere else doing it, but the one that comes behind them. And I think that's what we have our issue is, it's like once you make it to whatever we conceive the pinnacle is, it's like we spend so much time trying to hold on to it, we don't realize that we need to bring up somebody else to take our place. So then once we get to the point where we're not influential or affluential anymore, then the society system fills that slot and not us. You know, we don't pick from the people who've under that person. You know, like Clarence Thomas, when he retires, you know, and I'm just using him as an example, you know, he should have, you know, if he really participated in the African American community like he should, it should be somebody that one of his law clerks that come up that's, you know what I'm saying, is African American, you know. So, and we talking about qualified people. We're not talking about just picking them, because we're talking about well qualified people, like the young lady that's about to is nominated for Supreme Court. Very well qualified.
Yeah.
Very. Yeah. She should fly through with no problems. Okay, she should fly through with no problems. But what I see is that we have to create our own stars and not let the society and the compromise those of us create our stars for us. Because until we take control of our own destiny, creating our own stars and not letting people decide whether our people that we have selected are in or out, then we're still always be subject. And it's almost like we're still slaves, because ultimately they make the decision for us of who's acceptable and who's not. You know, to me, cancel culture has been the worst thing for African Americans, because we're the ones out here getting canceling each other left and right. You know, we don't dialogue anymore. Everybody's angry. And one of the biggest fights right now is what I see to the forefront in my mind is the fight that has been created between African American men and African American women. And it's like you have whole channels and whole shows and whole people who have come up with affluence that spends their intellectual talent fostering the fight. You know what I'm saying? They understand that the controversy is hot and people pay for that controversy, and they just foster it. And therefore, who is left in the wake of it? The whole culture altogether. You know, African American women, hey, the bedrock of this world. I wouldn't trade you in for nothing in the world. And I thank God that I had a strong grandmother and strong grandmothers throughout the time that endured, did what they had to do, took on the society at the time, worked within the system, worked outside the system, and moved us forward as a group of people. And it's so important that we celebrate that history and know more about these women, seen and unseen. But we're the product of them. There's no person alive today that's not was born of a woman. There's not a person alive today that was not born of a woman, barring test tube and that kind of thing. But even with them, eventually they have to be put eventually in a mother's womb. So I just want to wrap this up. Jay Chivon, do you have anything else to add?
Oh, no, not at all.
Not at all.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm glad both of you guys came on. RednSable, do you got anything to add to it? Because you know, me and you could probably talk all day. So do you have anything to add?
Let me see. Do I have something to add?
Or another quote?
No. I was going to end with a quote. It just slipped my mind. But I am... Lord.
That's all right.
Internet never moves when you need it to move. Okay. So we are... I did see a quote that and I know we're ending, but this seems a little bit controversial. So.
Go ahead. I love controversy.
It's by... I mean, it's opinionated.
Okay.
So, this is by Lena Horne.
Okay.
And it says, always be smarter than the people who hire you.
Amen.
No.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Barring Bill Cosby's fall, okay? He was one of the ones, due to the era he grew up in show business. He was one of the ones that I know said that you need to, as celebrities, African American celebrities, you need to know how to count your own money.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
And I remember Oprah Winfrey kind of referring to that, saying that she signs all of her checks. She knows where her money's going. Because if we watch the documentary, so much of our awesome talent made the money, but got screwed over in the back office because they didn't know how to count their own money. And I don't mean like counting dollars like 1, 2, 3. I'm talking about, where's all this money going? You say you're paying for this. A third person was paying their bills and then taking off the top and skimming plus getting a salary. You know, not understanding how taxes work. I mean, how many of our superstars made millions and millions and fall to income tax? How does that happen when you supposedly having a whole accounting team that's supposed to take care of you, you know, prevent that from happening? And then if you notice, none of the accountants go to jail. It's always the person, you know. So why aren't they held accountable for that? So I agree with that statement. That's not, to me, that's not controversial. You should be a smart ass or smarter than, the person who hires you. Yes.
Right. And I think the controversy comes in at where, what if you just didn't know? Oh my gosh, she was a famous singer. I'm tongue-tied right now. I don't, not tongue-tied, but I'm drawing a blank. She was an amazing singer. She can hit some notes that's unbelievable. She was a Broadway star. She's been in different types of films, and she also did a lot of stage plays. Yes. She ended up on public assistance because she was being stolen from by her accountant.
See?
He robbed her blind.
Yeah.
So to speak. And that piggyback off of that led to a lot of other people questioning if she knew how to do her own, would that have happened to her? Or would somewhere down the line, she would have eventually gotten taken advantage of by someone else? Because when you are a woman in certain types of industry, it's not that you aren't supposed to be smart, it's that you have to at some point surround yourself by people that you can trust.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to genres of media and music and fashion and those type of genres. You have to. You can't run your own thing all by yourself and be the star and the face of your business too. You can't do that.
Right.
That's impossible.
Right.
So eventually you have to hire people.
Yeah. You can't run the back office and the front office. Yeah.
So that's why I said for a long time they ridiculed her because of that. They said that she wasn't paying attention, that it was her fault because she should have known. But how would she have known? This was a person that she knew for a while. She's not the first person that this happened to, and she's been working with him for years. So why would she think that she needed to keep an eye on her accountant? They were friends. So I think that moving from that, I heard an amazing, and this is not about a woman, it's about a gentleman. I heard an amazing story about Steve Harvey, in his own words, told the audience how he was robbed. He had to pay $22 million back in taxes because his accountant was stealing his money.
Yep.
So he's surrounded by people who know their stuff, people that he trusted at that point in time. But now he says that he keeps his circle very, very, very tight, very small, and he had to step up and learn a lot of things. So that's where it became controversial for a lot of people, because they said, how can you be all things in all ways to all people and do your gift? Yeah. How can you do that? At some point, you have to trust somebody. So yeah, that $22 million hurt my heart. I was like, wow.
Well, most of them.
He ended up paying to go to the hospital. It was terrible.
I mean, we can go so many back actors have fallen to that.
Yeah.
I mean, Ray Charles, Will Smith, Wesley Snipes. I go on and on and on and on. You know, MC Hammer, Prince. You know, his controversy with Warner Brothers Records. You know what I'm saying? He didn't really, you know, they were, you know, he's the product producer, all this money. He get pennies on the dollar. Brandy, Brandy, Red Fox. You can go on and on and on. You know.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them.
A lot of them. Man, BB King. Wow.
Was it Red Fox one of them too?
Yeah, Red Fox, Chuck Berry, here in St. Louis. Yeah, just with all that they contributed, it's like they almost had nothing at the end.
Yeah.
You know, having to perform as hard as they did when they were 20 and 30 and in their 70s and 80s. And they're not getting nowhere near the amount of money. Somebody say, I'll give you $5,000 to come on stage. Yeah, and everybody love you all over the world, but you only getting $5,000 because, you know, we're not going to pay you what you're worth, you know? So yeah, with that, yeah. I think about that, you know, Tony Braxton.
Yeah.
Jackie Wilson.
Jackie Wilson.
Yes.
Muhammad Ali. I mean, we can go on and on and on, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas they were the talent. And that's the thing. We have to have not only the talent, but that's where education come in. We need strong African-American accountants that are honest and have integrity.
Yes.
You know, we need those in position. And again, you know, we can have a whole discussion on how we need to structure this. But it's because we're the talent. We got the talent, but we don't have as many in key positions that can watch out for our own institutional cultural wealth. And even the ones that say they out here now, I can't think of the guy name that's on Facebook and YouTube that talks about African American wealth. He turned out to be a scammer too. I can't think of his name now. God, it's on the tip of my tongue. And he turned out to be, you know, that all that black super, you know, African American empowerment, and turned out to be the one, you know, taking their money, taking people's money too. You know, so it's like, but we're gonna end on a positive note. Black women, African American women. Yeah, see, y'all get me going. African American women, you are very important. You're very loved, and we love you over here. I thank Jay Chivon for coming on. I thank RednSable for coming on and joining me. T Drake is doing her thing. She'll be back, and when she be back, and I would love to have you guys come in at any time that you want to. Anytime you want to discuss something, you're more than welcome to come on. We are all podcasters. As you know, you can find my podcast at Walk of Truth Radio Network, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. And follow us on your favorite podcast platform of choice. You just Google our names and you can follow our podcast, Walk of Truth Radio Network, and RednSable. What is your podcast and how can people find you?
You can find me on many platforms like iHeart and Audible, and I'm on Castbox and just a myriad of other ones, speakers. You can catch me on streaming platforms as well, like Clubhouse and a few others. I'm drawing a blank. I'm all over the place. Just Google my name and you will find me. And it's called Feed Your Mind, Fuel Your Soul, because I believe whatever you take into your mind, that feeds your soul. So if you are busy taking in garbage, then you will need to be cleansed.
Okay.
And that's what I do.
Amen.
I help with that.
Amen. Amen.
So, yeah.
All right. Hey, Rest, I'll make a joke. All right, tagless one, Jay Chivon. What do you? That's it. That's an inside joke. Okay, tell us tell us your podcast and where people can find you.
You can find me on all streaming platforms like Anchor.fm, Apple iTunes, and several more. My podcast is Surviving Journey Podcast, and that's pretty much every day of life, just getting through day by day, depression, mental health, and just everyday life. So that's my podcast, Surviving the Journey.
Amen. And we will be remiss if we didn't give respect to the person, the hub that brought us together, Sister Tanika Drake. God's gift through His Word. It's through her that we've all met, and of course, she has an awesome podcast, God's gift through His Word, and she has a book. And she has a lot of things going on, and really, she's like the godmother. We call her the godmother of podcasting. So she brought me into the game, and I have benefited immensely from it. So with that, I'm going to bid you ladies farewell, and I thank you guys for coming on. Chivon, I'm working on your tag as we speak, and by the end of the week, I will be able to submit a tag to you for your approval. So walk in truth. I always want you to be encouraged, blessed, and in peace, and always remember, walk in truth. RednSable, what's your tag?
Thank you so much for joining us. You have been listening to Walk of Truth Radio. I am RednSable. Thank you, beloveds. Have a blissfully blessed and beautiful, beautiful day. Take care of you and take care of yours.
All right, Chivon, you got something to say? I just come on, do something. Say something. Say something real piffy. Just say it. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chivon, Surviving Journey Podcast. I am so thankful to have been here in Walking Truth Radio with Dr. J and Mr. RednSable. I would say something that's always stuck with me, and I wouldn't say maybe it will become a tag really soon, is that you shall prevail.
Amen. That's all. Hey, that's all a tag is. You shall prevail. Good. Amen. That's good. All right, you guys.
That's good.
I'll talk to you guys on Saturday. Have a blessed week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.